Ahmed. I'm a technical support engineer at Central Innovation in Western Australian office. The agenda of today's webinar, we're going to cover some topics including the insertion methods, bill of materials settings and manipulation, the references from the part components to the bill of materials, exporting it to Excel formats, some customizations, and a few new features in bill of materials in 2019 SOLIDWORKS. So let's dive straight into it. There's actually everything in open up from the previous session. All right, so we have this assembly in SOLIDWORKS. This is a test assembly consisting of a number of components and one sub-assembly as well. So insertion methods, there is actually a way to just insert the bill of materials within the assembly as well. If you go to Insert, Tables, Bill of Materials, it gives me a bill of materials feature manager tree, prompting me to select a template. So this one I just created for the webinar just recently, and you can choose a default template that comes out of the box from SOLIDWORKS. Top level only, we'll discuss all these types as well. So this is just to show that this is the same window we get in the drawing view as well when we have in our SOLIDWORKS drawing bill of materials. So you can just place it in within the assembly environment. Increase and decrease the size here. So let's straight go into the drawings for now. I'll go make new drawing, choose a sheet format size. I will place a standard view that I want to bring in. So typically for the bill of materials, we have isometric or exploded view to just show all the components within the assembly. I'll just scale it up a little bit. So there are a couple of ways to insert bill of materials in the drawings. One is to just look at the annotation tab, and in the tables here we have bill of materials. It asks me to specify a drawing view. I will click on the view and it brings up the same feature manager tree for the bill of materials. And since I have a bill of materials created in the assembly level as well, so I get this extra option to either create new bill of material or copy existing one. So I'll just create a new one and just go with the custom template that I used before, or I can always look at the default templates that come with SOLIDWORKS. These are located in, so these are the standard bill of materials. I'll just use the bill of materials standard template for now, and I'll create my own later. Once I click OK, I have this option to insert bill of materials anywhere in my sheet, or if I go drag it across the title blocks, the borders in the sheet format, it actually snaps itself to there. So I'll just click it and leave it in the corner here. I have an option there to use an anchor point as well. Once I click anchor point, so what it does is I have defined an anchor point within my sheet template. If we right click in the sheet, anywhere on the sheet, and click edit sheet format, the title blocks and the borders appear, and then to define my anchor point, I will just, let's say I'll click this little point here and then set as anchor for bill of materials. So it has been set up for bill of materials. Once I go back from sheet format editing mode, it will snap the bill of materials to that point automatically, so I can choose the orientation there. but I will just unattach from the anchor point because I don't want it here. And that needs to be saved as a sheet format or a document template to save those settings that I just did. There are three types of bill of materials. Top level only, which is essentially just showing the hierarchy in the top level assembly. It shows the number of sub-assemblies within that top level assembly. Since this one is just consisting of parts in the top level, and then we've got one sub-assembly, so it shows that as well. So with the parts only, regardless of the sub-assembly, it lists all the parts included in the assembly. But I normally prefer the idented one, which is more detailed method of bill of materials, which actually shows the sub-assemblies and then lists the parts or the components within for the corresponding sub-assemblies underneath those. So for this one, I've got one sub-assembly and two parts listed underneath that, and I can give a detailed numbering for that, and it actually shows the sub division numbers of that particular sub-assembly, and rest is again the parts in the top level. If I click back on the bill of materials, I have more options here. Configurations I can choose. So this particular assembly has 5 configurations in it. I can choose which configuration I want to bring for the bill of materials. For the indented and parts only, I've got to choose which configuration I want to bring, but I've got an option for top level, which is also called tabulated bill of materials. I can bring all those configuration all together. Once I click that, it will actually list the parts included or not included in those all configurations. So the parts not included will be shown as these dash marks, which I can choose the representation of these. If I go to document properties, tables, bill of materials, zero quantity display as dash, so I'll prefer it as 0. So it will change from dash to 0. For that, I'll have to save my document template on the existing one to save this setting. Another option we have is go back to the parts only. It's called part configuration grouping. So that option is essentially for the components included in the assembly which are of more than one configurations, the way we show them in the bill of materials. So currently it's displaying all those configurations of the part as separate items. I can choose it to appear as one item, or I can choose the any same name parts within the assembly as one item. So this is more comprehensive, obviously. One more thing, when I exclude any bill of material item from the bill of material, I have this option to keep it but strike it out, so that it doesn't disappear from the bill of materials. So this is a really handy little tab in the bill of materials that most users don't really come across. Actually, I'll just undo the changes that I've done in the last half an hour. Alright, let's go back. Alright, so when I expand that, I have this little column appearing on the left, and once I hover over the components individually, it actually shows the thumbnails for each component. And I can right-click on the component here and click exclude from bill of materials, as you do with this motor, let's say. So it will be excluded and can be included later from the design manager tree. Right, so once we exclude a component from bill of materials, it's with this option checked that I showed earlier, strike out and keep missing row, it actually strikes that the whole row, but the item is actually excluded from the bill of materials. But when we exclude an item from the bill of materials, we can go back to the component tree, and then when we expand it, there is a little bracket on the right that shows which component has been excluded. I can right click and include it in bill of materials. It will show back. Not sure why it wasn't striked out. It should have been. And the second one would be this include, that takes the mark off. So we have covered most of this part, and with the resizing of bill of materials as well, we can, just like any basic Windows apps, we can click and hold a corner and drag it across to resize bill of materials. We can drag a column, a row or a column individually as well. But there is a little trick in bill of materials that, so let's say I want all those rows at this specific height that I just specified, but I can only choose like individual heights. So what I can do is click and hold the row that I want to move, and then move it to a specific point, and then press and hold Shift key. Here's the trick. So press and hold Shift key, and then move it across, and then leave the click, and then the Shift key. So it actually brings all those rows to the same height. I'll do that option back to contract it a little bit. Yeah, right. So that Shift key is really handy with resizing the full number of rows and making it like the same height. And then if there is like a lengthy bill of materials that can't be fit properly on the sheet, we have this option to split it. If I click split, horizontal split, I will specify a number of rows in each split. So let's say I will say 7 for this one. It actually splits the bill of materials into 7 rows each. And these pieces can obviously be placed anywhere on the sheet as separate entity, and I can actually move it across to the new sheet as well. And then can be removed as well. So just leaving one particular piece of bill of materials there. I can sort bill of materials with respect to the either part number, item number, description, or any other field that I want to. I can right click, sort, and here I have this pop-up window. I can sort this bill of materials with respect to the part numbers in ascending order. I click OK, and it actually sort the items in according to the part number ascending order. With the referencing as well from bill of materials, if I click any of the box in the description or part number, I don't really have anything highlighted to reference back to the actual part. But if I have expanded this little window and I click here, it actually highlights that little part as well. Also in the components there as well. It highlights the part from the component window. But from here, I can't open up I can only hover and view the thumbnails, but I can't open the individual component from this particular column. But I can do this from the part number or the description column. I just right click and open side plate or whatever component. Another thing is the part numbers, how they're listed in the information populated in the part number column is currently by default it goes to the document name of the parts, but in this particular bill of materials has been set up as a custom information that normally users want to go with either a specified number or the vendor name or whatever. So this can be specified. Normally it's done through when you go to the those particular parts, you specify description and other properties in the custom properties here. But for the part number, you go for the configuration properties, and it gives you an option to specify a user specified name. So whatever input user gives here is going to be populated in the part number values here. But from bill of materials as well, since our topic is bill of materials, we can control this behavior as well. If we expand this little bar and right click here, we have this component options, and that's pretty much the same window that we just saw in the part level as well. We can either change it to document name or a user specified name or configuration name obviously as well. So let's say I change it to document name, it'll switch to the component file name. We can always add this to in the custom properties as well, and add a column, like we don't need this one here, and then insert a new column called part number, and then give the part number description in the custom properties rather than the configuration properties. We can include or exclude columns and rows from the bill of materials. So I've included a column to the right, and I double click here. Normally it brings this little message automatically, but I can double click on that blue header, and then I just want to choose a custom property called material for all those parts here. By default, I'm using this template which doesn't have that column, but I'm going to save this bill of materials as my custom template. I'll go click Save As, Template selected. I'll just save the file anywhere with the name. I've actually saved already on the desktop with the test1 name. I'll just override on that one. So whenever I bring a new bill of materials, I have this option to use my own bill of materials. This is pre-selected from the browse option. So now it will bring those material columns as well. Another way to insert bill of materials is go to Insert, Tables, Bill of Materials. But I normally prefer to right-click a view, because for those two options you have to either pre-select a view or click the view later anyways. Right-click a view, Tables, and Bill of Materials. Sorry, I missed this part. So we have sorted and split bill of materials with referencing. We haven't covered ballooning yet. So there's an option in Annotation tab to either manually or auto balloon. So once we click auto balloon, it automatically gives the item numbers to the assembly view and links with these item numbers in the bill of materials. So normally we use exploded view, isometric exploded, so that all the hidden items are also shown for the item numbers all the item numbers listed, because it might be missing some here. So you covered the part number from custom properties, or just going from here. We can add a column that is not linked to the model, but we need it to be ordered from bill of materials, and we can always just insert a row, and let's say we want to order like a grease for this particular assembly, and just give a description, material, and quantity just randomly here. However, there is another option. If we have in the assembly level, there's an option we can create virtual components as well. We go to insert components, new part. So when we insert a new part from within the assembly, it actually creates a virtual component which is not saved in an external file. I'll name it grease. So I wouldn't create anything for this one. I'll just leave it like it. And it actually lists, automatically lists that part in the bill of materials as well. And the reason I wanted to show the virtual components is people have other virtual components in their assemblies as well. And in the bill of materials, the way to show virtual components is, again, with this little expansion tab, and this square brackets actually refer to this being a virtual component. And for that part, I can always go to the custom properties and specify a quantity or whatever the information I want to populate for that particular virtual component. Before 2019, we have this option with the borders to change the thickness of the outer boundary or the inner cells. Just these two options we had, but in 2019, here's the cool feature. I'll just go over that one now. There are a couple of ways to do. I can click here to select the whole bill of materials and this little border edit button. Now I can hover over the bill of materials table, and once I hover, go over a particular column or a row, it highlights, and I click there, and I can choose, I can specify the thickness for that particular edge only. For this one, let's say I'm just going to choose as well. Sorry, I got out of the command. Yep. Also, I could just select a particular cell or a number of rows or columns and then click this border edit. Now this will only allow me to change the borders of these particular cells, not any other. So I can click this one and then make it a bit thicker. So now I can assign a layer as well, if you're aware of layers in SOLIDWORKS drawings. This is a layer manager. I create a new layer for my bill of materials. I can specify a style, thickness, and then a color. Let's say for my bill of materials, I'll choose red. And then all I can do is to change the layer from this manager to bill of materials that I specify, and it will turn the color, and then I can save my bill of materials my template bill of materials so that it always come up in red color. If you don't want to save this particular bill of materials in red, we can specify this in a document property as well, which regardless of the type, the template of bill of material will always be in a specified layer. So we can go to document properties, bill of materials, and specify the layer here to, let's say, this one. And it's going to bring all those bill of materials in red color. There is another cool feature in 2019 bill of materials. If we go right click, save as. So we can, I discussed about saving it as a bill of material template, but we can save it as export to Excel as well. Just save it on desktop and give it name test2. We have this option to select thumbnails. I saved the file. Yeah, so once I open the Excel file, it actually shows the thumbnails of each component next to each row. This wasn't there in before 2019 version. So I've gone through these two. This is pretty much everything I needed to cover today. If there is an option, if there is any questions, sorry, you can ask. And this webinar is recorded as well, which will be later uploaded.